table in the foyer, there is a bunch of envelopes, and there's an envelope with your name on it. If you didn't know, just about Sunday, we're here. Please stop by, pick it up tonight, and take it home. It's a letter from our treasurer, from council, and so that's just on the table. And they are in alphabetical order, unless someone's been playing with them. The other item is, in addition to us needing some help to put the chairs and tables away, Donna Rand needs some assistance in bringing up all the Christmas decorations tonight, because she's gathering a crew to decorate on Saturday, but the church basement is being used, so we have to have the decorations up tonight so that we can decorate on Saturday. And if you're still thinking about it, she's still looking for volunteers, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, to come and decorate. Perfect. And I'll try to remind you all again at the end. All right, so now that we've got everyone here, Dave, you get the front row here. This one is safe for all of those who came in now. So I do need to run up and down anyway. Well, Lori's sneaking in a second. All right, so up on the screen is our agenda. And I need a motion to accept the agenda as circulated and shown. Christine, a seconder. Joel Ratz. All in favor? Carried. Opposed? All right. So next is the approval of the June 10, 2018 annual meeting minutes. They were in your meeting package, so I hope that you took time to read and reflect, see your name there, make sure it was spelled right. So I'll ask for a motion to accept them, and then we'll make any corrections there. So I need a motion to accept the minutes as Dave. Seconder? Sheila? Now, any errors or anything we needed to correct? Anything we missed? If you can remember that. All right. There being no errors or omissions or corrections, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Front row, ladies. All right. So for the next part of our agenda, I'm going to call up Dave Bunny, and he's we delayed. He'd be here on time. Dave's going to take us through all the financial stuff.
Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, so I am no accountant, but I will take you through the balance sheet and the income statement. So now this was as of year end for last year to April 30th, 2018. So here's the balance sheet. We have assets. Current assets are $195,000. And if you take a look, we've got a bank account of $191,000, our general checking $138,000. In terms of assets, our office trailer we still have on the books at worth about $84,000. We have furniture and equipment worth $67,000, and building and land worth $558,000. So our total capital assets are about $686,000, with it giving us a total asset of $882,000. If you look at our liabilities, we have some accounts payables. Now, once again, this was a snapshot point in time. As of April 30th, we had some accounts payables, some credit cards, some vacation payables, some current liabilities at about $20,000, and the rest was in retained earnings and total equity at $862,000. So of course they balance off. So really, we have no mortgage, we don't have any big debts as an organization. So for the income for the year, the first column is what we had budgeted for the year. The second column is the actual. Now once again, that's May of 2017 to April of 2018. So if you take a look at revenue, revenue came in, budget was $330,000, actual was $320,000, so we were short by about $10,000. And if you kind of go through the lines, we were on budget with staff, off by about $1,300. Administration, there's a difference between budget and actual for administration to the tune of $8,600 now. When you peel that onion a little bit, there was some amortization that wasn't budgeted, but that we actually accrued. Because if you take a look at our assets, we stepped up the amortization on some of those assets because some of the assets on the books are pretty high, and we wanted to step up the amortization on that. And the only other thing under administration that was over budget for the year was snow removal. We were over budget by about $1,000. Training resources, we're pretty much even. We're a little under our ministry support. At the end of the day, our net income for the year, we were $14,000 short of budget. So that's kind of where we ended the year. If you go to the, which is a little bit of a cause for some concern, but if you go to the next slide. Oh, I guess here, let's back up one. So does anybody have any questions on the income statement or the assets and liabilities? Going once, going twice. Now, we did have things looked at by Peter and Jerry. So, as per what we do every year, everything's all been checked by the two accountants, so it's all on the up and up. So now let's look at what's going on for current. Oh, okay. So here, I guess, but before we get into that, I need to make a motion that we accept the year-end financials as presented. So I'll move that we accept the year-end financials for 2017-2018 as presented. Can we get a seconder? Joel, can I do this or do you do this? Oh, okay, Joel. I'm temporarily taking over as moderator. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, carried. Alrighty. Now, mid-year update. Here's where we're at. 6 months in, so this is May to October. 6 months in, if you take a look at our revenue, our budget for the year is $161,000, and we're sitting at about $130,000. So we're $30,000 short. Where's my papers? Oh, I got my papers here. So yeah, we're $30,000 short. Normally over the years, summer is always a kind of quiet time. I know for myself, we tend to hit the hills because, you know what, there's snow on the ground for so long of the year that you've got to get your camping in while you can. But, you know, we kind of, and I guess those that have been on council for a while, they go, you know what, every year it's like this, we don't need to be worried. No need, it'll come back. But this includes September and October, and so it really hasn't come back. So I guess I know that the economy is tough right now, and I know that a lot of people are worried. I guess just to share for myself, last November I lost my job. And I've been with my employer for 7 years. And they asked me to move to Ontario, and I said thanks but no thanks. And so they invited me to leave the company. So, you know what, it was a tough experience. And so, you know what, I've definitely been there. So really all I ask is everyone pray on this. Everyone, those that have spouses, talk to your spouse about this. And I trust that this will start to turn around. As council, we haven't made any changes to our budget plan as of yet. We're being faithful to where God's leading us. But we have tried to, if you take a look now, kind of going through things, we've tried to keep expenses kind of in line with as much as possible. On a percentage, we're 88 to plan, or 88% to budget. We've tried to keep the spending at 90% to budget, so we really haven't made any cuts to the plan yet. But you know what, we may have to. And so, please go home, pray on it, talk to your spouses about it. And you know, we've tried to prioritize kids' church curriculum for supplies and stuff like that. We've absolutely, well, other than Ben did put some lights up in the parking lot, but that was a safety thing. But other than that, you know what, please consider looking at where you're at with your giving for the year. And I've got here 2 Corinthians 9, verse 7. Each of you should give what you've decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So I'll just leave that with you. I'm not going to try and guilt anyone. I'm not a fundraiser guy. I'm a sales guy. I'm not an ask for donations kind of guy. But that's kind of where we're at with the financials for 6 months of the year. So, does anyone have any questions? Oh, yeah, here we go. So here's budget versus actual giving this year. Now, there's May, June, July. As you can see, you know, we always kind of pace behind. We tried to, historically we've budgeted giving kind of on a straight line. Well, historically we used to budget everything kind of a straight line and just go, okay, if we're spending $12,000 on something, well, divided by $12,000 a month, even though insurance might be $7,000 in 1 month, right? So with budgeting this year, we put a lot more thought into it rather than just doing a straight line. You know, as you can see, we budgeted less in July, August, hoping for a little bit of a bump back in September, and we did get some of it, but it hasn't made up. We kind of had a little bit of a shift there, September, October. So that's kind of where we're at with the monies. Did anyone have any questions? Now I know I spoke with Jen today. She said that we've had a couple of big donations come in through PushPay. We've had some stuff come through with PushPay. We're going to send a letter out to everyone, and yeah, I mean, I trust that God will put it on our hearts, and we'll get things back on track.
All right, so for the next part of the evening, we are going to do the Hope Mission joint venture update. And it's Rob Combo Rob.
All right, I wrote down a few things, Ron, and then we just have to be the brains of the operation. So we realized something a couple semi-annual meetings ago, and that's that we can't just pick up where we left off 6 months and assume that everybody's with us. It's sort of like when the difference between watching TV shows the old way, when you had to wait a whole week in between, and then those TV shows would always start with last week on Dallas. JR did this. But if you binge watch a series on Netflix, that stuff just is annoying because you just finished watching last week. So previously at Unity Baptist regarding Hope Mission, a little quick update. And this is a reminder for most of you, but just kind of bring everybody back kind of to the starting point here. For lots of years at this church, we struggled with the physical limitations of our building, and we've had 3 or 4, depending on how you count them, different designs or plans brought to the congregation, which ultimately we never built. And in a nutshell, those conversations led to the thoughts that we need to build something we can afford, that we want to build something that is not just useful to us or just on Sunday. We want something that is used and serves the community. And there was discussion about trying to find partners. So entered Hope Mission a few years ago, moved to Red Deer, began serving kids and families in our area through after-school programs. And we began to partner with them on a few things, and they have been using our facilities for a while for different things. And then we sort of had one of those moments, not planned, where we kind of looked at each other and went, you want to build a youth center, and this really is the perfect location, and we need to build something. So that led to conversations about a partnership. For the last couple of years, that's really been a big project, hammering out what that might look like, which resulted in a letter of intent, which spells out the basic legal agreement of how the two organizations would work together on a facility, what it would cost, what it would look like, who would pay for what, and in broad terms, what the spaces would be likely within it. Last spring, at our annual meeting, we had a couple of congregational meetings to discuss that letter of intent. And then we did something I don't think we've ever done before. We sent out, or we gave out letters to every single voting member of the church with an address to the church, envelope with a stamp on it so that everybody could vote. And by mid-July, that vote was complete. I think you know the results of that. Probably the highest the highest I've ever seen in terms of percentage of voting members who voted, like over 80%, which is, if we had to have that as a quorum, we would have never done any business ever. But we achieved it on that one. And over 86 point something percent voted in favor of it. So it's a very strong letter of endorsement to move on. We explained then that that was actually just one of a number of steps. So that wasn't like the final vote, and now it's definitely happening. The Hope Mission Board has to vote on it. And then if both parties have agreed to that, then there's a whole process of coming up with the design and the final costs and all of that. And we would both have to agree to that. And the city is still a wild card in this. They still have to agree and sign building permits and so on. So now for some background on Hope Mission. Just a quick reminder, they've been around in Alberta for about 90 years. Their passion most of the time has been similar to Mustard Seed, folks downtown disadvantaged, all those kinds of things. A number of years ago, they became very involved with youth, children, because they went, if we could reach some of these vulnerable people while they're kids before they start hitting our programs as adults. And so then they came to Red Deer and started doing that. After we said yes to this proposal, it was passed over to their board. Their board now had to discuss it. So, in case you don't know, Hope Mission has 4 or 5 major projects in the works in Alberta. I think a couple right at camp, something big in Alberta, and another one in Edmonton. The biggest and the most expensive and the most pressing is their home facility, their main facility that they do most of their downtown ministry in Edmonton, called the Jameson Center. which needs a major rebuild. It's a $16 million project. They have permits, they have plans, they have about half the funding, and they thought the provincial government had said that they would match the funding. And then the provincial government kind of said, actually, no. And so that really is Hope Mission Board's biggest issue. That's the biggest thing they're dealing with. So in September, they talked briefly about our proposal, and in October, they did pass a motion to move ahead, but their motion wasn't to pass the letter of intent. Their motion was, and I can only guess, I don't know, I'm guessing that they spent so much time thinking about talking about the Jameson Center and what they're going to do, that they went, we're in favor of the idea, but we haven't gone through all the details. So anyways, what they did is they voted, they passed a motion to say, let's proceed to the next steps of design, plan, and talking to the city. So that's just what we have. That's the reality of where we're at with them. So based on that, there is a plan for Ron and myself and some other representatives who've been a part of this conversation, the Joint Venture Committee, to meet with Representative Hope Mission and a representative of their design team, because Hope Mission has built lots of things, so they have a contractor. We're going to meet with him, architect and engineer. So we're going to talk to them about the next steps. How do we do this? How do we talk to the city? How do we get input from people? What's our plan? And that's where we're at. I think that's full disclosure. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and see if between us we can answer them. And Ron, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. And maybe just to give a little bit more broader perspective on what the next steps here will be. We're scheduled to meet with a Hope Mission. It would include Bruce plus people from the Red Deer group here, as well as the construction manager that Hopewell uses on their projects. So this initial meeting will be to begin to map out what the process is going to look like. Now, it may seem like we were all figuring that this was going to be pedal to the metal here, right from the get-go. And at one point, I was concerned that the process would be pushed along faster than really what we could do diligence on, in particular if this had happened during the summer. In a way, I think we should look at it maybe as an opportunity that the time frame has been slowed down a bit, that we will be able to do have a good period for this initial stage. You may have heard me talk about something called a functional program, and that is really before any lines are put on a page, you build a verbal description that sort of lays out the vision for the project, begins to define all of the spaces, how they're going to function, and how they're going to sort of function together. And that I think is where the next important part of the process here will be to engage with various what we call stakeholders from within our congregation in a few of the really strategic areas. One of them being, one of the key spaces in here will be a multi-purpose space, and one of its key functions will be as a worship space. That here's a real opportunity for us to kind of take a look at what kind of a space it is that would really suit us as a worshiping community to gather in. It will be flexible. I think it also gives us a chance to really maybe step back and really maybe think about what worship is about and how that would be reflected within a space. But understanding that it also needs to be a place where some kids can be really active and do their thing. So there's some exciting design challenges here. Another key area will be our Christian education. And I'm excited that we have within our congregation a number of young people within the education system who can bring that sort of, where's our education system at this point? How do we sort of position ourselves so that we're sort of culturally relevant to kids in our society, as well as gearing that space to really be multi-purpose to fit the needs of the Hope Mission Group. So those are just two key areas. We will be identifying other areas, facility management, all kinds of areas that we'll be looking to engage and get your input in this, so that so that we all sort of take an ownership of this, so that we all can be sort of dreamers and visionaries in what this project's going to be about. Questions? Yeah, this our first step and our first meeting on sort of launching into the next stages here. And really this first meeting will be more of a planning meeting and mapping out what the next steps should be about, both the design input, maybe the approval stages, engaging with the consultant team, all of that kind of stuff. We'll probably do a bit of an exercise, what we call pool planning, to kind of get that whole strategic plan mapped out. Oh, yeah, December 6th, that's a Thursday? Yeah. It's in my calendar somewhere, so I'll be reminded about it.
Yeah, also add one more thing. I think it's just one. There's definitely a pause in the conversation while we waited for them to make their decision, but Bruce, who's the executive director, and I have had coffee a few times. We're still talking. Yep.
Is this the first model that Hope has had with you?
Yeah.
With the church?
First time Hope has partnered with a church? Yes. This is new for them. In fact, it's very hard to find anybody who's doing what we're doing.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, this supposedly there was a Roman general who wrote back to Rome and said, just marched off the map, please send directions. In some ways, this is a project where really for both organizations, and for organizations, churches, and for parachurch organizations, this is a bit of a marching off the map here, in that typically churches have their own facilities, will become strong supporters of parachurch endeavors. Parachurch organizations typically have their own facilities. The bringing together of two organizations like this to develop a joint venture facility as well as mission really and truly is a kind of a marching off the map kind of thing here. Having said that, I actually think that it's really something that we should be doing a whole lot more of. So hopefully this will be a precedent setter and set an example of how churches and organizations such as Hope Mission can come together to develop facilities within a community to minister to the needs of a local community. And that, I think the other exciting thing about this is that you don't have to be a mega church to do this.
Just one other humorous thing for me in this is that Bob Teskey, the lawyer who helped us draft this, has spent 40 years of his life helping other non-Christian secular businesses and organizations do this. So Christians don't do this, but other organizations do this all the time. So he brought that expertise to this and helped us, but it is just to me a little tiny bit ironic. So.
So, well, often you will have, for example, different school boards will collaborate with community organizations to do joint venture facilities that will be shared. And we even have a number of them here within the city. That's done quite often, where there will be a joint venture and sharing the facilities.
Yeah, our Collicutt Center is city and two schools.
Well, and Foxford School is Catholic and public together in one building.
Yeah,
Very,
Dahl.
very Wilson School and the library.
That on that side it happens, but even this, Bob will say, I don't have the details, but businesses, organizations, I couldn't tell you, make money. He's made a career in this.
Okay, any other questions, comments at this point?
One question I had is, I may have missed this information, but in the process, is our church going to be gone while the building is gone? You know, like, do we have a building while it's going on?
Excellent questions.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if I missed that.
Remember that carnival tent that we used to have?
Excellent question. We don't know. And we don't even know, at this point, I would say we're not even sure what the drivers will be in making that decision. And that's where you, as that programming stage evolves, as we get working into sort of what will give us the best end result, may determine how this facility fits into it. This is where projects like this, even though it's not a big project, it's not on a big piece of land, the phasing and a lot of the strategic things like that can get fairly complex. And certainly that's where we will be getting input from congregation as well. We need to keep in mind that we, as a congregation, we still have a long-term sort of strategic plan, and I think we need to be cognizant that we can't be letting a project like this sort of derail other things. Like there's a whole lot of balls out there that we kind of need to keep our eye on, and how those balls are bouncing at this point. That's what makes projects like this exciting, fun. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Just on that, I'm just trying to get some understanding. Are you, when you're asking that question, are you saying, while this project's happening, will we still have this building to be in? That was part of the conversations that we had
Yes.
with Bruce.
I believe, yeah, and I think the conclusion of that is that obviously the preferred would be that this remain our home base during the construction period. And then, yeah.
But I think that was the big thing is.
That's right, that's right, that's right.
While this is going on, and I think that was.
I think it's even in the letter of intent that that's what we hope, that's what we'll aim at. So we can't guarantee it.
I think there would have to, given that, and given a whole lot of logistics here, and again, keeping in mind sort of the health and well-being of how the congregation functions during this period, that's where you weigh things like, this isn't like moving an office temporarily down the street, or a business into a warehouse where you can move back. Like, I think we need to appreciate that a church is a very complex kind of organization, organism, so to speak. And so we need to keep all of that in mind and be making the best decisions for our long-term interests as well as what the final project will be about. Okay, good questions. Any other? Okay, stay tuned. And now that we know we're moving forward, just invite this be a matter of prayer. This isn't a matter of us doing something and then asking the Lord to bless it. This is about, and even the kind of my own sort of personal reflection on it, thinking about what it should look like, and trying to do some research on worship and worship spaces in a contemporary world and whatnot. I realize that this is where we need to really sort of, as a congregation, commit to kind of understanding what is in God's playbook for this, and that we make a real effort to wrestle with that, try to understand it, and align ourselves with it.
Just dive into the next one. Okay. So Ben is going to lead us in a discussion. We talked about this on Sunday, and it was in your packages and so on, around some proposed amendments to our Constitution as it relates to membership. And just to reiterate, we're not voting on any. This is the beginning of the conversation that has only barely begun at the council level. I want to situate it in the larger conversation. This isn't just sort of out of the blue, let's talk about something, why do we do this? A few years ago, council and then bringing things to the congregation, we really started working on the strategic plan, which, if you remember some of that, talked about, we reworked our mission statement and value statements, and we talked about our strategic plan around corporate worship services and facilities, missional communities, basically the up, out, in, that kind of thing. And the idea really behind all of that was just to bring clarity. I was at an event a year ago for boards, church boards, and one of the comments one of the presenters made, one of them is the 90% of church conflict happens because people have different expectations, different definitions of the same word, different expectations about what you can do and how you can do it. And that's made even worse because there was a day when everybody in this room would have grown up in an Alberta Baptist church, and things didn't really change much between 1920 and 1960 or 70. But now, people come from all kinds of different backgrounds, and have all kinds of different expectations, and there's been a lot of change. And so, just a real sense, we had some people come on our board who were gifted in this, that, man, we got some fuzziness, and we need some clarity. And that became pretty clear when we started talking about developing a facility. And then you have all these opinions all over the place, but you really haven't clarified why, and priorities, and all that kind of stuff. So the membership piece, when we presented the strategic plan, we've done that a couple of times at congregational type events, was always said sort of under construction. It's that part of the website that they say is still under construction. In the sense that we have stuff in our Constitution, but we have not revisited that. We haven't thought about that. And we haven't really worked at bringing it into alignment with the rest of it, or even just thought about, is this the best way to do it? Which, with the way things change anyways, you're supposed to review the parts of your strategic plan and your key policies and the Constitution like regularly. Every few years go through everything. So we finally got to it this year. And And so that's where this comes from. It's part of a bit of a longer term plan, and we will do this again. So I wanted to just then talk about why this matters. Like, we've got something for membership. Why would we want to look at it? One of the challenges when you talk about membership, again, different ideas and concepts, is some people say, well, why do you even need membership? Like, why do we even need any policy? And there's really two answers to that. And for the first one, we actually don't. The first part, what I would say is the primary aspect of being a member of the church, is just being biblical. It's just all the things that it says in Scripture about what the church is and what it means to be a member of the body of Christ and how we're to relate to each other, all the one another's, all of those aspects of how we're to be different as a community. Those kinds of things are covered in other parts of what we do. They're covered in why we worship and what we do. They're covered in missional communities. They're covered in leadership development strategies and youth ministry and all that stuff out in those different teams and so on. So in that sense, if that's all membership is, and it's just sort of informal, kind of like a family, who's in, who's not, you wouldn't need it. But there are two realities that why we have to have this, and one is that we live in Canada in the 21st century, and there are laws that charitable organizations have to have voting lists. So churches that say, oh no, we don't have membership. If they have a charitable tax number, they have voting lists. It's the same thing. So that's part of what that is. You have to identify who can vote as part of the organization legally. Secondly, we're Baptists. If we were Anglicans or Presbyterians or some other things, and we didn't have the government telling us to do this, we would have, it's top down, the Pope or the Bishop or whoever tells you what, and then you all just do what your leadership. Anybody want to go for that one, that model? Baptists aren't like that. So we are democratic, and the ultimate authority, the council and staff are empowered and directed to do day-to-day ongoing stuff, policies and carrying them on and so on. But the ultimate authority rests in the membership, which only get together a few times a year to make decisions. So obviously it's got to be some big picture direction, but the members decide the budget, which means you don't get to do much if you don't have a budget, and they get to decide what that is. They get to decide who's on the board. They get to decide who the pastor is. They get to decide what the Constitution is and any changes. So, you want to have the right people voting. That's the bottom line, is you want to have the right people voting. Now, where the biblical membership and sort of that practical membership come together is the right people to be voting are the people who understand and accept and submit to and practice all the biblical aspects of membership. Like, that should be a Venn diagram that overlaps a fair bit. And frankly, we need to look at what we have now and see if we have that. If we have our voting rights practical membership lines up with the biblical aspect of what it means to be a member. And that we are also very clear in our expectations for members, so the members know what their rights, responsibilities, expectations are. And something that we really have very, very little of right now is any kind of accountability around that. So if we think it's important, should we have accountability around that? And that's going to be part of the conversation. So we're going to talk about it because it's really important. Because who votes sets the direction of the church. So with that, I'll pass it over to him.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, so Rob started to identify this. We talk about membership in two different ways, and they can be sort of fuzzy and overlapping at times. Sometimes when we talk about UBC family members, what we mean is you are part of the body of Christ. You are a family member by virtue of the fact that you follow Jesus, and by virtue of the fact that you participate in this family life, or you know other people here. But then often when we talk about, we'll use the same term, membership, and all that we mean by membership is a certain group of people has the right to vote. So I'm going to try and keep those two concepts relatively separate to the degree that I can tonight. We are here to talk about whether or not our Constitution needs to change so that the right people have the right to vote. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about voting rights tonight. We're not talking about Aunt Sally, who is now in a nursing home, and whether or not she is still part of the family. But we are talking about whether or not Aunt Sally in the nursing home should have the right to vote if she hasn't been here in 20 years. So we're going to get into some of those types of scenarios, okay? Because as Rob said, ultimately we have those two different groups. We have our UBC family members, who are part of the body of Christ and one another stuff, and then we have the people who have voting rights here, and we want more overlap between those two groups of people, because we don't always have it. We have a number of awkward situations, and that are a direct result of the Constitution as it currently stands. We have three main problems. We have non-participants who have the right to vote. They don't contribute, but they have the right because it was granted to them at some point. And we have to ask them, should they? Are they truly being biblical members? We need to ask ourselves that.
What do you mean by non-participant? People that just are not like church every Sunday, or like they're not involved? Or?
They're not involved. Yeah. Some of them aren't even here. And so I'm going to get into some specifics. Yeah. Then we have family members who are here, who participate every week, who buy into the strategic plan, who are living a life of discipleship to Christ, but actually still aren't granted the right to vote by virtue of our Constitution. So we're going to talk about that situation as well. And thirdly, we have people who have membership, I should put membership up there, but are too young to vote. And that's just a small, awkward thing that can be relatively easily fixed, but it's sort of a strange dynamic. We say, you are now a member, but when we talk about membership, we're just talking about voting rights. So we said, you have the right to vote, but you're not actually old enough to vote. It's kind of weird. So we are going to get into these, and we are going to discuss these issues one at a time around the table. And you're going to have an opportunity to weigh in, discuss it with your table, and then offer pros and cons of what you think some of these proposals, what they need to look like. So, awkward situation number one. We have non-participants who can vote. And I'm actually just going to read these for you, and then you are going to discuss them around your table. So, Mr. T. What's Mr. T's phrase? Like, what was his catchline?
Pity the fool.
Pity the fool. Pity the fool. So, I was thinking Mr. T. Mr. T is no longer living in central Alberta, but wishes to retain his membership and thus his ability to vote in any church matter, even though he's not otherwise involved or even aware of our church's needs or activities. Do you think that's a problem?
Let me give you a specific, just for fun. This is the way our system works now. I bumped into somebody who I hadn't seen in years and years and years in a parking lot outside a mall. And I went, oh, it's so good to see you because I have no contact information for you. And you're still on our membership list. And I have to, the way it is now, I've got to ask you, would you like to be removed? And she actually said, no, leave me on there. She hasn't been in our church in 15 years. So there's a very different set of expectations, even about what it means and what it is. And the way it's set up now is I have to go, oh, okay.
So,
Do you find that people who, or a person who hasn't been here for years, is voting? Yeah, I was aware of that. Like if you haven't been here for 3 years, are you showing up to vote or somehow?
I don't think we're overly worried about whether or not he's going to move back to, or drop into central Alberta for the semi-annual meeting, but it does also affect our quorum. So we have to have a certain percentage of our members present, and that number then gets inflated the more people we have on the voting list.
Well, I'll add one more thing. I think I'm right for this. No, I don't. We had this discussion a while ago. We have active voters, non-resident members, and inactive members. That's how we got around it, so we just say the active members, right? My understanding is CRA doesn't recognize that. If it says member, they could just show up, and we are supposed to count them. So we're out of alignment with, again, that whole legal thing that we talked about before. And it also just is a weird dynamic to sort of have those lists and then to figure out how to clean them up. So we move people off, but we don't really tell them. And is that the right thing to do either? For somebody to find out that they've been moved to inactive without a conversation? So, we've been told there's this 4 Cs, the Canadian Council of Christian Charities, I think. You should just have one list of members. So that's also a driver for this.
So along with what you're saying here is you want the physical presence of people in the church and that community. But that's really not where we live. Everything is Facebook, everything is, so look, I'm thinking, but I'm just saying that this is starting to be redundant, that you actually have a body of people who are physically present. So like for voting, I'm saying that the way things are going at the moment, personally just checking it out on Facebook.
Just get likes.
Yes. So that's the voting aspect, but what we're talking about is that the people, we want to discuss whether or not the people who have the right to vote, whether they vote in person or elsewhere, are the people who are presently involved in
That's
contributing.
what I'm asking. So the right to vote is changing because people are not physically present. They work in different places, they live in their house, and they email everything to their job, and you even physically go.
Yeah, so we are asking if they are going to participate in family life in some way. We would like to continue to allow them opportunities to have a say in family life. But for those who aren't, then the question is being asked: should they have a say in family life? This is the leadership's perception.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's the leadership that has to decide.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying the way the world is going, I'm a very compassionate person. I mail once in a while, things like that, but I'm not seeing that. So I'm saying, like this whole discussion is old fashioned. And you are not old fashioned, you're all very present. And you all use your phones and you all use different media things. And so I'm just asking, maybe we need to step it up and maybe we need to think a little bit further down the road because it's not the same.
So when we are going to pass out some sheets in a moment, and we are going to give you an opportunity to weigh in. You can weigh in with a comment like that. Okay, thank you. Okay, scenario number 2 of non-participants who can currently vote. Mrs. Hu became a member in 1990 and hasn't given financially or served since 2000. Yet she is allowed to vote because of an application made 28 years ago in spite of 18 years of non-support. These are not hypotheticals. So the reason that we are presenting this to you is because we can put names to these types of scenarios. Thirdly, Mrs. Wetzel became a member a long time ago, but in the course of her years, she can no longer affirm UBC's statement of beliefs. And were she applying for membership today, she would be unable to sign the statement of beliefs or have her membership application recommended by a pastor. This is a direct result of the Constitution as it currently stands. The proposal for you to consider, is that membership needs to be renewed. This is what we are suggesting. This avoids the problem of once a member, always a member. Further to that, though, it creates opportunities for conversation about whether or not the person who became a member X number of years ago still affirms the direction of the church, the statement of beliefs, whether or not they can not just show up on Sunday morning, but actually whether or not they can affirm the whole direction of the church and actually be a participating member of the body. This would involve some sort of recommitment to statement of beliefs, general, it provides an opportunity to remind one another of what it is that we're doing together, what it is that we are committing to. So, it does put an emphasis on present involvement and discipleship, because that is discipleship is the key thing that we are looking for when we talk to a potential member who's making an application. We have an interview process. We give them homework to do. We talk about not only what do you think UBC's values are, but how do you plan on participating, how are you currently participating, but also tell me about your walk with Jesus. That's what we want to know now. And for someone who has done that 28 years ago, and their beliefs have changed, should that person still have the right to have a say in their life? If they couldn't become a member today, just because they did 28 years ago, this is a question we ought to ask ourselves. So, any other clarifying questions? Not I'm for or I'm against, that's what we would like to do on our routines. Do you have any other clarifying questions before we have a chance to? At this point, we don't know, because that's a procedure that council would set. So that would depend on how deep we want to go, but it would involve sort of reaffirming a statement of beliefs. It would involve some sort of, here's how I'm presently involved in our congregation. Here's what I do. I don't just show up, but I actually participate in my spirit and so on. So it wouldn't be that much different than the present application process. Probably more brief for someone like yourself, who we know you're currently involved in. So it would be different for people who are present and active versus people who are, Rob mentioned, responding to parking on 50 years later. Yep. We don't know. That's a great question, and feel free to weigh in on. Hey, I think this is an interesting idea. I think this should happen every 3 years, every 5 years. So how long do you think it takes?
Ben, do you want that to encourage more involvement or discourage introverts?
Well, we're doing
Because that would take both ways, right?
I'm an introvert,
Yeah, I
so
know.
there's the answer to your question. We want to. This is a two-pronged thing, right? We want to have membership stop working against us in certain scenarios, but we also want to see membership work positively for us. Let's have these conversations. Let's make sure that we're on the same page about what this church is about and how I can use my gifts and what I am contributing and so on. So it's an opportunity to have some good conversations that need to happen.
So it wouldn't be necessarily like a slight pressure for certain people that don't want to be upfront to participate. It wouldn't be that.
What's wrong with the pressure?
No, I'm just saying, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it, but
It creates an opportunity to have those discussions where we might not otherwise have it. Otherwise, at the present moment, what we have to do is go to you individually and be like, I haven't seen you in X number of months or years. What's going on? This simply puts a structure in place for, hey, we haven't seen this person, and it's time for real. Let's have that conversation as we grow. That makes more sense. It's easy to do when you're a church of 20. We're not. And yeah, we are definitely putting pressure on, here are the ways that we measure discipleship. Let's talk about it and see if those ways overlap with what you think. What's wrong with that? Sounds like a great conversation to have. Joel, I said,
I was just, so currently we have 3 lists. So this would be a constitutional change, correct? When we vote for that, would we have to use the full membership list, and then will we actually be able to reach quorum? It's just because
ones, I don't know off the top of my head if this is a quorum item. It may be, I can't remember. We have to check. The second thing is that if we follow our current rules, which may be out of alignment with some things, but they still are current rules, we just use active voting lists. So this would change the active voting list to the only list. So we do that now because we would never reach quorum if we included all those names.
Coming on active members, so this list that we have, like, what percentage of our list would be impacted by this non-participants?
If you don't know, I'll look it up while we're doing other stuff and get back to you. I don't know.
I forgot to bring your folder that has all that. We've got about
I've got 'em.
72 active members, and then we have about 12 what we call non-resident, like they might be serving, like Kelsey, some of those who are missions. Then we have the inactive who haven't asked for their membership to be transferred. They're still living around here, but they have chosen to go elsewhere. And that list is probably 12 or 14-ish.
So really this is impacting 12 to 14.
Well, it would eliminate those who are non-residents, like Kelsey and some of those, right?
So there's
And because there's a non-resident and then inactive, and then the active. And our active list is about 72.
But at the moment, all you're doing is talking about the Mr. T scenario, right? So we also have the Mrs. Who and Mrs. Watson, and that number is harder to pin down. So,
15.
yes, very well.
When we left back in 1999, it's about 2 months later, the church told us and asked us if we wanted to keep our membership. We said yes.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah, because how come we won't even join that church if we're still a member somewhere else? That doesn't make sense.
A non-committed member doesn't make sense. A non-participatory member does not make sense. Absolutely.
And our administrative processes aren't perfect in making sure that every year we review the list or call people, or sometimes we don't even know when people have chosen to leave because they weren't regular attenders all along, so you're not sure. And like I said, every once in a while, like theoretically, each year council should look at the list and review it before the annual meeting. It doesn't always get done, and we did start that 2 years ago, and it's been very difficult to reach some of those people who are on that list because we don't have contact information to do the way the process is done.
Okay, so we're trying to get a process like that in place. Are there clarifying questions before we discuss them? John?
Yeah, are you leaning, it seems like you're kind of leaning towards after you sign that membership piece of paper, and say 10 years down the road, and you're emotionally or physically not able to do all things that's not done in church, you should no longer be a member.
What we're saying is that we should have a conversation and talk about what that looks like. Talk about the level of commitment.
I mean, you can be a participatory member, a family member of Unity Baptist Church, even if you are physically unable to lead children's ministry or sing up at the front. Perhaps you're the prayer warrior that is able to at home be praying for people, or writing notes to people. There's different ways to participate that's not involved in standing up front and worship. I think if people are using their gifts in the best way that they can, based on their physical and emotional abilities, all those kinds of things, then that becomes, yes, I am participating, I am involved in this family group. Whereas Baptist is true. Yeah.
They don't want that around anymore.
I don't think that's what
We simply want to have an ongoing conversation in the same way that we would if that person were applying for membership today. we would have a conversation about discipleship, about support, about involvement, about what does it mean for you to be a disciple of Jesus, well, that means using your gifts in a variety of ways. So we would have a conversation. We're not trying to automatically exclude people, but we do want to make sure that it is the right people. Oh, I'm sorry, I told Lynette first. I mumbled until I saw that hand. I'll come back to it.
I just want to share a story, a very personal story, of my aunt. She was a very strong woman, very active in the church in several areas. And one year she was in a car accident, ended up being in quadriplegia. She rarely was able to leave her home after that. She became very depressed, and particularly around the fact that she could no longer serve in the church. When the pastor came to see her, she shared this, and very tearfully. And my aunt was never one to cry. And he said to her, he said, "You can still serve in the church." And she's like, "Well, how can I serve in the church? I can't even step my foot into the church." And he said, "You have the opportunity to spend time communicating with God and praying for people." And then he just kind of left it at that. And she called him up probably a couple weeks or a week later and said, "You know what? You're right. That's what I want to do. Start sending me all the prayer requests. I want to know everything and everyone who I can pray for." And she started doing that, and that made a huge difference in her life. But that was that conversation, right? And if the pastor, no one had ever come to her and talked to her, she would have just still felt that she was useless and not able to do anything for the church.
Thanks for that, Lynette. Let's continue those stories around the table. Martha, did you have a clarifying question or a story?
I'm just thinking about the person that has served in the church all their life, and due to circumstance, they want to remain a member of the church, but they can't physically be there in the church. So if you ask that question and you say, do I remain a member of the church? How could you answer them? Like, how could you answer like a shut-in that is physically not able to come to the church, and they raise their children in the church? They've been a faithful member.
So that's a great question, and once again, we are talking about voting rights, not family member. That shut-in is still very much a UBC family member. We are talking about whether or not that shut-in should have the right to vote. That's it. And to the degree that we're able to offer that, and to the degree that that shut-in is able to evaluate the decision, its impact on UBC, then we can extend that. So, but that's the question. Whether or not, this is not about excluding people from being family members. This is about who should have, or shouldn't have, the right to vote. So, thank you once again for letting me clarify that. Now, you have sticky notes and pages in front of you. Please take some time to talk around your table, and then put some things on your pages. You've got a pro column and a con column. And you can simply say, hey, you name the pros, or you name the cons, but here's where I'm at, or you can sort of have a discussion and you just put as many ideas down there as you think you want leadership to hear.
Is one color pro and one con, or is it not that?
Yeah, let's make yellow like sunny and happy, and that one can be pro, and the other colors are all cons.
If you want to grab, there's cookies Yes, it's gonna yeah, it's like here is that
Why is it that when I start talking, more people leave? I feel like sugar actually does trump whatever I'm saying. So let's make this, okay, thank you for your participation. Let's get on to the next one. We have a second awkward situation, and that is that we have participants, we have family members fully involved who cannot currently vote. Professor X teaches in Kids Church. He gives monthly through direct deposit and is supportive of the strategic plan. But he can't vote on the decisions that affect him and the church body he faithfully serves because he was baptized as an infant, which he considers a legitimate fulfillment of Jesus' call to be baptized. In other words, we have a family member who currently does not have a vote, and he is a family member by virtue of his relationship to Jesus and by virtue of his relationship with us. He is fully involved and committed. He is fully supportive. But there's a little difference in understanding of baptism, and that excludes him from conversations like we have had today in terms of actually voting on anything that we would decide, anything that affects him. So our proposed solution is that we would continue to require baptism for membership, but not believers' baptism. Now, let me clarify a few things. First of all requests for membership are applications, and we've started talking about that tonight. That this isn't simply that we grant it to whomever asks. There is an interview process where we talk about the person's personal relationship with Jesus and their ongoing discipleship. So this wouldn't be simply a matter of this person was dunked as a child, as an infant, something like that, sprinkled as an infant. And that was a decision made for them, and they had no ongoing relationship to Jesus, but we're going to grant them membership. We are simply talking about removing the baptism by immersion as the qualification for it. So, we have these conversations. Tell me about your current discipleship to Jesus. Further to that, that application process would rule out other traditions that would really fall outside of what we would understand to be Orthodox Christianity. So although Jehovah's Witnesses do baptize, the interview process would exclude that person ultimately, as we discovered exactly what they understand about who Jesus is and so on. So this doesn't open things up to just anyone who has been baptized. Secondly, Unity would continue practicing exclusively believers' baptism by immersion. We're not changing ourselves as Baptists. We're going to continue to be a Baptist organization. We're simply suggesting that perhaps those who are family members and currently disciples of Christ and fully involved and committed, should be able to have voting rights at this particular organization. So, and then thirdly, this is actually a proposal that fits within a Baptistic understanding. It falls within our denominations requirements, and it has been supported by the regional minister. Actually, the late Jim Leverett, our former regional minister before he passed, wrote an entire paper on this, talking about how it should be allowed in Alberta Baptist Association churches that those who are fully committed in every other way should be allowed to have voting rights, membership voting rights, at their local congregation that they are involved in, even if they have been baptized as an infant. So, clarifying questions.
I'll clarify one thing. Jim Leverett didn't actually argue that we all should go to this model. He argued that it was permissible to go to this model. He says he was going to stay out of the weeds and let autonomous Baptist churches make up their own minds. But the question was, is this even allowed? And so he wrote a theological paper saying, yep, it's allowed.
So I guess my first kind of clarifying would be, it almost seems like the one before ours, we were raising the bar of what membership community looks like. And this one looks like we're going to lower it here. What I mean by that is like I came from a denomination that didn't even require baptism for it to be an member. So when I came to Unity Baptist, that was totally new. But when I came to this church, and I wanted to submit to this body, I said, hey, I didn't grow up this way. These aren't my considerations of membership of baptism, but I'm going to submit to the church because this is the way this church, this is the people I love, this is the way we're going, this is the way they do baptism, or this is the way they do worship. So it was a test for me to submit my own personal beliefs on membership and baptism and set those aside for the body that I'm going to be. So it raised the bar on where baptism, so I guess for me, clarifying question is, do you see that as lowering the bar or the one previous slide before we were raising the bar on what we need to do for membership? Because again, you guys talked about one of the positive things about renewal baptism is it brings up conversations that we should have with members. Right? This brings up a huge conversation saying, believers' baptism, we believe it, and we believe that all members of Unity should go through this process. And so, to me, this is almost opposite in spirit of what the one just before was. And so my question is, do you guys see that as lowering the bar as far as membership compared to what the other one was?
That sounded like a comment posed as a question, but I will, in the end, I will speak on behalf of leadership. I guess it's in front of us, so therefore, yes, we do see this as not being something that lowers the bar. But that's something that we can discuss, certainly. I applaud you for your submitting to the church, and in the same way, the very fact that we're discussing this means that we have quite a number of people, a fair number of people, who have for a long time submitted to this church and actually demonstrated an incredible amount of humility in submitting to and then continuing to participate fully in the life of this church. And we want to ask ourselves whether or not they should in fact have the right to make decisions about the direction of this church. Other clarifying questions?
No comments?
No comments. Thank you.
I wanted to comment with us in the church. I didn't have that comment before people here, but I want to talk to the body, right? Because this is
Because I was baptized as a child as well. And then when I became a true believer of Jesus Christ, I wanted to do what the church required, and I was baptized again. Right? So I can see it, but I can see the concern for that person for sure, but it's kind of I did it. I was baptized in the church and I was baptized again.
Yes. So some people have gone through sort of a double dunking, if you will. But then other people have felt very strongly and have affirmed to me very strongly that no, that was my baptism, and I consider that a legitimate fulfillment of my requirement that Jesus asks of me, and I'm not going to dishonor what that was or degrade it in order to have the right to vote here. So there are people in both camps, and some have made that decision to do so, and I know people who have been double dunked, and I know other people who can't, in good conscience. But at the same time, like Joel said, do fully submit to this congregation and this understanding of our church and participate fully in spite of that.
I think one of the things that churches like ourselves are kind of wrestling with here, and that is that denominational lines are not so clearly defined as they once were. That there's a movement across denominational lines. And I think, Joel, if you say you came from a church where baptism was not required, baptism in any form,
Or just the membership.
or membership was not required in any form. We're not saying that, and I think what Carl is raising here is that for many people in churches that do practice infant baptism, that is sort of a right that every family does, even if they haven't been to the church in 10 years, they still have to make sure that the child has been baptized. There's other people from those more liturgical denominations for whom that point of baptism, and often followed by confirmation, but around the time many of our young people are baptized, that those are seen as deeply significant points in their spiritual journey. So I would agree with the position that if infant baptism was just something the family did, that didn't hold a whole lot of significance, that being baptized as an adult is the right thing to do. It's from a tradition where that is deeply held and part of their spiritual journey, and has been part of the lifelong spiritual journey. And yeah, we need to be
What if it's
small.
baptism by sprinkling?
Yeah, no, we're saying that as Baptists, the way we will practice baptism in this church
Right. But
will
if someone-
continue to be.
I know, but if someone was sprinkled for baptism before they came to the church, do they not remember?
Not under the current constitution. Even though that is technically believers' baptism, what Don was talking about is, what if someone were an adult and decided to undergo baptism, but it was within a different tradition, so they were baptized by sprinkling. That would still be technically believers' baptism, because the definition of believers' baptism is someone who undergoes the process themselves with their own understanding of what baptism is, as opposed to that decision being made for them by parents, etc. But it was not done with immersion. So we are suggesting that that whatever type of baptism it was, whether it's believers' baptism as an adult or whether it was by as a child, that would not be the barrier to being given voting rights
Right now,
within this family. Yes. But as the Constitution currently stands, if that adults were sprinkled, they could not become a member either. We would still be Baptist. We're not talking about changing our beliefs, we're talking about extending voting rights to those who have a different understanding of baptism. No more clarifying questions? Okay, you have your sheets, you have your pros and cons, stickies. Feel free to discuss.
rezone for high density residential.
You already have board, schools, and a bus route.
Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much for participating. And I'm just gonna say that if you will go home, because this is not a bed and breakfast, unless you want leftover cookies and fruit tomorrow. When you go home and you have more time to think about this, feel free to let us know. Send us a letter, send us a postcard, an email. Our email addresses are on the website. Telegraph, telephone, I can say that. So feel free to do that because I know that there's a lot of conversation, a lot of things, and if you're like me, I go home and then I start thinking about it because I have to have time to think about certain things, and then I kind of know what I want to say or how I feel about it. So this is not the end of the conversation, and I do know that some might want to hear what everybody's opinion is. So we'll compile this, we'll put out something, and then perhaps we'll have another opportunity where you can really just share your heart. We'll talk about it at council. Our next council meeting is in January, and we're doing a whole day retreat, just so we have lots of time to kind of talk about this stuff and many other things. All right, so we'll gather up your sheets and compile it and let you know. Before we wrap up, just want to remind you to pick up your envelopes out on the table. Due to budgetary restrictions, if you haven't picked it up by Sunday, they're going in your mailbox. We're not going to mail them out. They're not super important, but we do want you to pick them up. And I'm not going to waste a stamp. So they'll be there. Donna needs some help with bringing up the Christmas decorations. So if some of you can help with that, some can help with putting the chairs and tables back, and if some can help, the food, Rob, we're going to just pack it up because youth are meeting here tomorrow night, so they'll eat whatever we didn't. So we'll just tidy that up. So see Donna, she's the lady with the computer over there. She'll help. She'll direct you to where the stuff is, and if you can bring them up. And remember, 10 a.m. on Sunday for Saturday. 10 a.m. Sunday is too late to come for decorating. Okay, Rob, you wanted to mention a couple of things.
Yeah, real briefly, we always talk, often we report backwards, we talk backwards, but we want to look a little bit ahead, let you know some things that are coming up, particularly Advent and Christmas. So this is just an interest sake. If you want to start reading ahead, you can. Our Advent and Christmas sermon series is all Isaiah. Okay? There's more Christmas and Advent language that comes out of Isaiah than, I think, even more than the New Testament, because they're just pretty small passages in there. And so we're going to look at through that lens. So we also have a couple of Christmas events that we've been advertising, but we haven't had Christmas events in this church for a while. We've got a couple that are happening, so I encourage you to participate. So on December 2nd, Sunday afternoon at 4:30, we're having a potluck Christmas banquet here and an ugly sweater fashion show and auction. So if you've got office parties coming up, come and support this. The youth decided where the money was going to go. We asked them, what do you want to do with the money you raise from making and selling these ugly Christmas sweaters? And they voted to put it towards the food program at Northwood School. And last, we did this last year, Christmas Eve for the first time. We had our service at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was Sunday. It went over really, really well. We had a lot of positive feedback. So we have decided to do it again at 4 o'clock, even though Christmas is on a Monday. Should we do it if it's a Monday, not a weekend? Well, if there's 2 weekend days before and it's Christmas and Boxing Day after, it's probably not a working day for most of you, and lots of folks have kids. So that's what we're planning to do. Just thought we'd let you know, and if over cookies and all the rest and moving stuff around, you want to comment on that or ask questions, feel free. Is that everything?
December 15th is the ladies' banquet.
Oh, right, that was the second one, thank you. I missed that.
And Donna is organizing that, so if you got questions, talk to her. December 2nd event, I'm organizing that. I have my setup crew in place, thank you very much. And then we'll just be looking at a cleanup crew. We'll recruit then. We also encourage, haven't had enough cookies. We also encourage you to wear your festive attire. You know, if you've got a sweater, you got your jewelry. I started wearing my earrings, Festival of Trees, they lit up the trees on Saturday. It's now officially time to start wearing my jewelry. Wear your sweaters, your ties, maybe they light up, whatever. Also come that night with your festive attire and have fun. It'll be in. You want to come in your pajamas if they're decent. We are a Baptist church, keep that in mind. You can wear your onesie. All right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:13. Dave Bunny, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, let's just close in prayer. Father, we give you thanks for this evening, the opportunity to talk even about what membership looks like and what our commitment should be to the family, to our responsibility when we have the right to vote, and so many things we looked at, Lord. And I just pray that you would just help us to continue to think about what that looks like and that we ourselves would be checking if we are measuring up to what you've called us to be as members and followers of you. We just thank you for each one who's come. We ask that you take them home safely, and that as we move into this Advent season, Lord, that our hearts would just be tuned to you and not so much to the commercialized part of it, although that is certainly a big element. Help us, Lord, to balance that out and just to be an example of you in however we handle ourselves, or how we say what we do, and that we handle the stress of the season well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you are free. You'll have some more goodies. Help clean up, help bring up stuff.
See.